Hello, everyone, and welcome to Overtime. Allie Jordan, the three-year-old Edneyville, North Carolina girl who shot herself on Christmas, has died. She had gotten a bicycle for a Christmas present. She fell over while trying to ride it. Her mother went inside to get a change of clothing. She climbed into a truck that was parked outside. It belonged to a friend who had been staying there for the holiday. She found a loaded 9mm pistol and accidentally shot herself in the head. In Aurora, Colorado, police were dispatched. This is not, I just realized the way this is written makes it sound like this just happened. It did not. But nonetheless, in Aurora, Colorado, the police had been dispatched to a suspected robbery. A man broke into the home of Gary Black. Black was a typical good guy with a gun. When someone broke into his home, he got his firearm and he shot and killed the man. Police heard the shots and came running. They found Mr. Black standing over a dead body and assumed that Mr. Black was the intruder and he had killed the homeowner. They therefore shot and killed him. And he died in his own home. In Cincinnati, a 14-year-old by the name of Jorta Mack died when he decided to skip school, and he snuck back into his house. His dad, a good guy with a gun, mistook Mack for an intruder and shot and killed his own son. Same thing happened in Detroit when a 16-year-old boy snuck out of the house after dark to go see his girlfriend. He was shot and killed by his father, another good guy with a gun, when he was trying to sneak back into his own house at 3 a.m. in the morning. In Little Rock, Arkansas, good guy with a gun, Curtis Copeland, shot and killed his own son the same way. In New Fairfield, Connecticut, 44-year-old good guy with a gun, Jeffrey Guillermo, shot and killed his 15-year-old son, Tyler, who had decided to take the long way home and was coming through a neighbor's yard, but was holding something shiny, which his father mistook for a weapon. If you own a gun, you're 5 times more likely to kill a friend or family member than you are to use it in self-defense. 5 times more likely, period, end of discussion. And every single one of the people I just mentioned thought they were the exception. They thought they could outsmart those odds. A recent study in Memphis, Seattle, and Galveston found that in an 18-month period, 626 shootings occurred in or around a residence. In total, 54 were unintentional shootings, and 438 were assaults or homicides. Only 13 of the shootings were legally justifiable or an act of self-defense, and 3 of them were by law enforcement officers acting in the line of duty. For every time a gun in a home was used in self-defense or an illegally justified shooting, there were 4 unintentional shootings and 7 criminal assaults or homicides. For every 10% jump in home ownership of guns, the risk of someone in a household being killed rises 13%. The risk of a non-family member getting murdered is increased only 2% with gun ownership. About 1,000 deaths in the U.S., 1,000 illegal deaths, occur per 1 justified death with a gun in this country. To add some more painful perspective, you are more likely to be shot by a hunter than by a terrorist in the United States. Hunters accidentally shoot about 1,000 people a year, roughly 50 times the number of Americans who are shot per year by any act of terror. The odds, by the way, of you, a good guy with a gun, shooting a bad guy with a gun, nearly 0. Meanwhile, Vladimir Putin has requested to speak with President Joe Biden tomorrow. Biden has agreed, and they will be speaking by phone to discuss a wide range of topics, including, quote, upcoming diplomatic engagements with Russia. More than 100,000 troops are currently stationed along the Ukraine border. U.S. intelligence officials have warned that the Ukraine and allies that Russia could be planning an invasion as early as January. Putin has suggested he will invade if NATO allies with the Ukraine or engages in defense or with any former Soviet state. These positions are non-starters for the NATO alliance. Tomorrow, we will be hosting former Commander Lance Mcmillan, one of the lead logistical planners for the force operations in Korea and the Middle East. He was also a former operations director to the Joint Interagency Task Force for the DoD, coordinating with foreign and domestic law enforcement agencies, and a liaison to the Central Command's 5th Fleet in preparation for the invasion of Iraq. We will have him on to discuss all of these things, in particular his planning of the naval aspect of landing the troops in Kuwait and organizing a invasion of a foreign country. He has some unique perspectives, and it did, in fact, change a great deal about what he thought about the U.S. military and the U.S. involvement in other countries. We will have him on for that, but tomorrow he will be on to discuss military strategy and the likelihood of an actual invasion of the Ukraine by Russia. The James Webb Space Telescope, the most powerful telescope in the world. Oh, by the way, of course, what may help would be the time. That will be tomorrow, 9 p.m. Eastern. Again, former Commander Lance Mcmillan. The James Webb Space Telescope, the most powerful telescope in the world, and off the world, for that matter. Roughly 100 times more sensitive than the Hubble Space Telescope, was launched into space on Christmas. It will travel for about a month to reach its destination in solar orbit, about 1 million miles from the planet. There will be 6 months of calibration and aligning the mirrors and instruments before the telescope is fully operational. It will be able to look further into space and thus further back in time than any instrument we have ever conceived of. It will be able to go back as far back as just 100 million years after the Big Bang. It is expected to transform, not my language, it is expected to transform our understanding of the universe and our place in it. It will investigate the early universe, investigate dark matter, and even photograph other planets, looking for the presence of water and hints of life in the atmosphere. After 4 days of deliberation, Kim Potter, the former Minnesota police officer who we actually covered in her initial shooting of Daunte Wright, was found guilty of first and second degree manslaughter for accidentally drawing her service weapon instead of a taser and fatally shooting Mr. Wright during a traffic stop. Omicron, meanwhile, has been tearing through the world and through the United States. The U.S. has hit a record 7-day average of over 260,000 new COVID cases a day. Okay, hold on a second. Oh, yeah, okay. Meanwhile, yesterday, it was recorded a whopping 380,000 new cases, according to Johns Hopkins University, the highest ever since the start of the pandemic. Initial data shows that this record will break again today, and estimates already for today are close to 500,000 new infections. Within a week, we will be averaging over 500,000 new infections every day. 500,000. Michigan, Vermont, Maine, and New Hampshire have all broken hospitalization records set in the last winter by this pandemic. France, the UK, Italy, Germany, and Portugal are also seeing huge increases, and many have also set hospitalization records. In New York, in just the last 3 weeks, pediatric hospitalizations have increased 5-fold. The Children's Hospital in Chicago is reporting 3 times higher than normal higher hospitalizations than their previous peak, than their previous record in December of 2020, with overall hospitalizations 4 times higher. Dr. Anthony Fauci has said that the U.S. needs to brace itself for a post-holiday surge, and these numbers are just the beginning. Nationwide, total pediatric hospital admissions in the U.S. are 90% of the previous record peak, also caused by COVID. Experts across the country are warning that this is just the beginning, and it's only going to get worse, and rapidly, over the next couple of weeks. U.S. companies across the country are beginning to suffer significant staff shortages and the very economic troubles that people had hoped we would avoid by not following, apparently, the CDC guidelines for maintaining safe distances, masks, and vaccinations. Hospitals, pharmacies, and nursing homes are reporting significant and worsening staff problems. Supply chain issues, which started early last year in the early stages of the pandemic, have grown, affecting producers like China, South Korea, and Taiwan as they get hit hard by coronavirus and have to shut down factories or lose workers to illness. This is because shipping companies have cut their schedules in anticipation of a drop in the supply of some goods, actually in the supply of a great many goods, and an increase in demand of okay, no, that's not right. And a decrease in demand of other goods, such as what you would find at restaurants, hotels, airline, and other travel services. However, these shortages hit groceries, fast food chains, and other parts of the nation's food supply, causing nationwide shortages, coupled with the staffing problems across the country. And everything from entertainment industries to government agencies are now under-resourced and understaffed. We're also learning that the PCR, and the at-home antigen tests appear to be less effective in identifying the Omicron variant and less sensitive to positives if you are infected with Omicron. They produce more false negatives than against Delta or any other variant of COVID. Testing facilities are now overwhelmed, meaning fewer people are testing. They are testing less often, and the tests are now less reliable. And the more people who get Omicron, obviously, the greater the chance that yet another variant will occur. And that is this week, ladies and gentlemen. So Joe is unfortunately not available right now. He may still join us. So I'm more than happy to discuss anything that anybody wants to discuss. I think couldn't be more proud that most of our audience, and certainly anyone on the Discord, if you want to join us on the Discord, you'll see lots of good information there. But, I know I'm sort of preaching to the choir, preaching to in our audience, people who already have a pretty good idea of how this stuff works. But the question was never, do we save Grandpa or do we save the economy? That was, I'm sorry to say, probably one of the stupidest fucking things I've ever heard. And I was arguing with Untangela just 2 days ago. So the reality is that was never the choice. We can let Grandpa die and just take a little longer to suffer the consequences of the economy, which will also last longer because of the decimation of the population. Or we can take a much harder hit to the economy up front, early on, get it over with, done with, and move forward and recover faster too, and have a real recovery. We chose incorrectly. We chose unwisely. At any rate, so we are now suffering what looks like is probably going to be the beginning of significant issues. I will say this. Actually, my family and I, last night, we went to see the Spider-Man movie. Now, my eldest and I had already seen it, the new Spider-Man movie, and I have to tell you, I loved it. I really did like it. And all the Marvel movies have been fun, and they've been pretty good. I've been impressed with the quality of them. The Endgame, I thought, was a pretty good one, especially if you've been following most of it. I'm not a huge diehard Marvel fan, but you know what? It's been good entertainment. But that was a good movie. I normally rate movies on a scale of 1 to 10, and that was about an 8.5. That's Spider-Man 1, and it's rare to see any Marvel movie go anywhere even, an 8 is about as high as they've ever gone before. It was a good movie. And we now thinking about it, that was probably an unwise idea. Now, this was a nice theater. It's actually distanced naturally because it's a dine-in theater. So each chair is actually, it's this big, thick, reclining chair, and you can press the buttons and you can lean back. And, you basically, you're only sitting next to your family, and the nearest other person is going to be about 6 feet away at a minimum. But we learned when we got there that they couldn't serve food because they'd run out of staff. And when we we tried to get just hot dogs, which at least they did have at the counter, but they didn't have enough people to run that station either, and they were behind and hadn't cooked any, and they'd just thrown some on. I said, well, maybe in half an hour we'll get it done. The bathrooms hadn't been cleaned in, it looked like days at least, and there was nowhere to take your trash. There was a place where there were 4 bins right next to each other, and the bins had gotten completely overflowed. I'm a pretty tall guy, and I had to kind of reach up to hit the pile of trash at a movie theater in the United States of America, and a pretty big one, biggest one in my area, probably maybe the biggest one in the state. It's a pretty big one. It's a well-known one, and they didn't have the staff to run any of it. They probably should have shut it down. And as we sort of went, we've been, again, with Omicron, we took as many precautions as possible, but the data has been getting so bad so quickly, too. By the time we had planned this, I probably shouldn't have gone. But it was interesting to see firsthand, and then we went to a McDonald's afterwards, and they had staffing shortages at the McDonald's. And they warned that they wouldn't be able to necessarily get us all the food that we had ordered, and everything was going to be played very much by ear. So as I'm saying this, and I hope people will either in the live chat or in the descriptions down tell me their stories, because I haven't been out very much. I do the show from home, and we've been on vacation. My kids have been on vacation. My wife's been on vacation. I've been, for the most part, we're still streaming, but anything other than streaming, I've been sort of staying away from things for a little while. And it's amazing to see how pervasive this has gotten. So we are, as we reported already, there have been a lot of changes made. And the fact that the numbers are so bad, the good news is Omicron is not, at least at present, it doesn't appear to be as deadly as Delta, but it's far more contagious. And the hospitals, many in the country, have now already exceeded their previous records, and that kills people because you can't go to a hospital. And I'm thinking back to where Italy was when all of this started, and it's kind of bizarre to be here now so long after and remembering talking about Italy and how you could see the bodies from space. There were so many of them. And it's good to know that this variant isn't as deadly, but what happened to their hospitals there, and to realize that it looks like the U.S. is kind of on the cusp of that. And we all remember where we were during the last surge, and we are at the beginning of another one. So that is not pleasant. We will keep everyone as up to date as possible, and we will be discussing this on our Discord. We will have Homozygote back on to discuss this, and we're staying on top of the information. But right now, again, less lethal, but the infrastructure has exceeded capacity in most demographics that I can tell, and the medical systems in this country are about to, I think, take a pretty serious hit. So we'll keep an eye on it, and it is what it is. And again, it's not as deadly a variant, so we'll hope. Kim Potter, that was one. That was another one where it was. You know what? I remember when we did that, and we do, this is a news program, but it's also punditry. We tell you what happened, and then we give our opinions. And my opinion was that something had gone wrong. There had been one shot fired, not a whole bunch of shots, and we didn't know why there had been a shot fired, but no other officer backed up the shots. So it was an accident, was my opinion at the time of the shooting. And come to find out, less than a day later, sure enough, she had reached for her taser and pulled out her service pistol instead and shot and killed the guy. Now, I've said this before, and you have to be a little careful saying this because people can read into it. He shouldn't have fled. You don't flee the cops. That doesn't mean he deserved to die. That doesn't mean that doesn't mean any of what happened should have happened. But it's you watch that video and like there are 5 officers there, and but I do also understand that there's a fear of officers, and it's a warranted one. So I don't know how we solve that problem, but nonetheless, the manslaughter conviction, from what I can tell, seems probably quite just. The reality is she did not have her weapon on the correct side, and she was violating police procedures, and it looks like that's what led to her pulling out the incorrect weapon. And while obviously he should not have run, and whenever you run, you risk an accident happening. He almost got run over by a car. He almost ran an officer over with the car. Running is not a life sentence. It is not a death penalty. You don't get executed for running, and we should allow people to run a bit more and not shoot them in the back. You know what? If they get away, it's the modern age. You can track them down. We have a thing called DNA and fingerprints, but nonetheless, It's unfortunate, but she really screwed that one up, and from what I'm seeing, I think it's that sounds like about right. So she's I don't think that they actually have. I don't know if they've got the sentencing yet, but guilty of first and second degree manslaughter sounds about right. So the telescope, I that is amazing. That's really exciting, and that's a spectacular piece of news. If you don't, if you're not really into science or astronomy, it's hard to estimate how and why this is so important. But the amount that we learned from the Hubble, and we're going to learn more from this, and it is true. It's funny to think, but light does not travel instantly. We think it does because for all intents and purposes on this planet it does, but it doesn't. It takes 8 minutes for the light from the sun to get to us. So we are not seeing the sun as it is now. We're seeing the sun the way it was 8 minutes ago. So when you look at light from far away, you're not looking at the object. You're looking at it as it was that period of time ago. Alpha Centauri is the closest star to us. It is 4 light years away. So what we see is Alpha Centauri as it was 4 years ago. If it blows up, we won't know for 4 years. So the further back we look, the more we can look back in time. And that, hey, that was actually an accident, but okay. Don't get too pleased with yourself on that one. But at any rate, and that tells us a lot about ourselves, tells us a lot about our place in this universe, and is a huge part of how we do improve the human condition, and one of the reasons why we have, in the last 400 years of applying the scientific method, done more to advance the state of man than we did in the 10,000 years prior to that. This is important, this is good, and this is something that all of us as human beings can be proud of. It's not the moon landing, but it ain't that far off. So, very glad to hear that one. Commander Lance Mcmillan, very excited to have him on. The biggest that we really do want to discuss with him is he was the liaison for CENTCOM, working as a logistics officer, because he had actually planned the logistics for Korea and for the Middle East in the past. And he was planning the logistics for the invasion of Iraq, using Kuwait as a platform. And the little I've heard is it's almost what you'd expect, just because we're so cynical about that administration and that time and Halliburton and all those other things. But it's worse. It's worse than I had, and it's kind of depressing. And I think he's got a lot to say on the matter, and we're very lucky to have him. But he's also he's a long time and high-ranking military officer. So we are. Hold on. I think Joe is here. So let me let him in right now. We'll get him in here. Joe, how are you?
Right. Oh, good. Yeah, I fell asleep and lost track of time.
That's now. Let me just make sure. Okay, no, you should not be echoing. So if they hear an echo, they'll call me a liar and call me out on it. Oh, so. Let's see. Well, we covered. I did a little rant on gun control because I don't know. The numbers on that are just. If you own a gun, you are 5 times more likely to shoot a friend or family member than you are to do the ultimate good guy with a gun scenario and defend yourself with it, period. And everybody thinks that they're the exception. No, I'm the guy who's gonna, and I rattled off the number of, and I guess it's because I'm a dad, the number of parents who have shot and killed their own children who are coming back from breaking curfew or, or doing something stupid and, nobody... you're in the United States of America, and you hear somebody rattling around in your house, and your first thought is to just go shoot and kill them. But
that's the thing. I mean, I years ago, a friend of mine who was very big into guns, he was in the NRA and all that, and so he was always trying to talk up the NRA and guns and why all the liberals and blah blah blah, how they're ruining everything. And so I said, well, I want to find out about the NRA for myself. I want to avoid all the talking points from either side. And so he loaned me, because he had a subscription to, because he had an NRA, he got like a monthly magazine. Mm-hmm. So he let me borrow like a dozen, like a year's worth of magazines. And I read through these. And there's a section in each one of like people who defended their home with their weapons. This is a kind of to build their case. Of course. Now, mind you, so this is a curated list. This is the list that NRA selected for publication in their own publication as a way to promote defending your home with a gun, right? So this is not a liberal source. It's not anybody who's trying to sandbag the NRA. It's the NRA.
Yeah.
In fully half of the cases that they chose to publish, in addition to whatever way they think they saved their home and property, they also shot somebody, a friendly in their home. And this is the curated pro-gun by the NRA list. So if that's the best that they could do, that tells you how screwed up the whole idea is. If your best effort is shit, then then the rest of it is pretty much falls apart. The thing is, sure, do you have the right to defend your house, right? But the problem is that we always talk about responsible gun owners. There are very few, because when you hear people about are they trained? Do they do this? To do that? How do they store their weapons? Where they have the ammo? All that. In very, very few cases do you ever hear that people are, compared to the general overall, most people are sloppy with gun safety. They're sloppy with how they store their ammo, store their weapons. And then there's some people who just want to shoot somebody. One case, I won't go into too many, but there was a case in Texas where, to be fair, there was these guys that kept robbing this elderly guy. Okay, so he's an elderly guy. He wants to defend his home and wants to stop getting ripped off. Fair enough. So he hears somebody probably breaking in again. So he calls 911 and he tells the dispatcher, "I'm going to go kill them," and he did. Now he got off on it because it's Texas, so
castle doctrine. Yep. Once the guy. Yep.
Basically, that would not, like in most other states, or at least a lot of other states, that would not fly, because it's one thing if he went and he brandished his weapon and said, "Get out of my house or I'm going to shoot you," and they came at him, fair enough. He basically ambushed them in his basement and killed them. So no, that's not. And then that's not counting the one where the guy also in Texas, where a guy was house sitting for a friend and he detected that somebody was trying to break into his friend's house. He called 911. The police were on their way. The dispatcher said, "Don't go out there because the police are coming. They'll be right there any minute." And he literally told the dispatcher, "I'm going to go over there and take them out." And he went out and killed them. So it wasn't his house. They were not armed. They hadn't even entered the house. So he's literally defending property, and he used deadly force to defend somebody else's property. No, that does not compute, Will Robinson. So that's all I have to say about that. But, I could go on for days.
Well, and there absolutely are legit good guy with a gun scenarios, but they are few and far between, and far more people die in mistakes than the chances of you actually needing it and using it in a real good guy with a gun scenario are 1/5 the chances of you killing somebody else with it accidentally or someone, or murdering someone deliberately.
Because even if you're in a public place and you're armed, there's a good chance, like if the whole idea of walking down an alley and somebody jumps out at you, chances are that they're going to get the drop on you and they're going to take your gun away from you and kill you with it. That's more likely to happen.
That does. That does happen. And then we're going to have on tomorrow. We're going to have on Commander Lance Mcmillan, who was the lead logistical planner for the U.S. invasion of Iraq. And he is in the Navy. He was at the time CENTCOM, commanding the Fifth Fleet's preparation for the invasion. So we're going to have him on. I would like to have him on. We're going to have him on in a couple of weeks, I think, to discuss that, because it seems that he had originally been in the military for quite some time. I think he got very disenchanted with the military when he was planning this, because it sounds like, at least to me, and we haven't really had this conversation full yet, but it sounds like he was he didn't feel like he was being given being given what he needed for success, but he was certainly being given what was needed to help make lots of corporations in the U.S. very, very wealthy. And I think that did not sit well with him. So we'll have that discussion. But actually, tomorrow he's on because he also did go to military school. He's actually had a significant amount of training in military theory, and we're going to be discussing what he thinks the chances are of an invasion of Ukraine by Russia in the coming month, and how and why and what he thinks is actually going on there. So that should be interesting. So we'll have that one tomorrow.
So what on the list have you not covered yet?
Let's see. I think we were just wrapping up. We did the telescope, which Jake is right. We really need to start building the next one right now because they do hit end of life reasonably quickly. And then guns and COVID, which I just talked about, and I had mentioned. I mean, I didn't realize I haven't been out in a while, really much, and we did go out last night as a family, and oh my God, the movie theater we had gone to, which was really normally a nice theater, they didn't have enough staff to keep it running. They hadn't emptied the trash, they hadn't cleaned the bathrooms. They couldn't keep up with the food demand, so most of the things were like in the process. I mean, it was barely operating. And we hit a McDonald's on the way back because we're like, we need to get food. We hadn't eaten, and they were barely operating. So it's interesting. I don't know. Have you been seeing a lot of these shortages and staffing issues?
Not to that degree. Like we went to the movies on the 17th to see Spider-Man, yep. And there were definitely some signs. They were definitely a little bit under. But I don't go out much when I don't have to because people who don't want to wear a mask. Yeah, if you don't want to wear a mask, stay the hell home and you don't have to wear a mask. And I'm vaxxed and boosted, and if there's another booster that comes out, I'll take that too. But yeah, I mean, I try to avoid going out. Mike, I'm a little understaffed right now. A guy went back to his previous job because it's in a different field. He decided, the job. Yeah, it was funny. He took temporarily because he was between jobs, and then he came to my company, and then he was like, it basically was software developer. You want to go do that? But we're a little slower at the moment anyway. So it's year end. It's either feast or famine. So actually, it's okay. It's good to have. I'm glad to have somebody off the books at the moment, and then when we gear up, I'll have to bring somebody on. But yeah, I mean, I've seen some signs, especially when I was traveling back in late September. A lot of the hotels are understaffed, and it definitely shows, in like and unfortunately, of course, in the hygiene of the rooms you get, which is really, not only is it bad in general, but it's also even worse at a time like this, where that's, so I brought my own sanitation supplies to make sure everything was sanitized myself and didn't depend on, other people to do it. But now, so you talk a lot about Jalene Maxwell?
That sounds familiar.
She got convicted of all.
Yep.
She's Epstein's friend who was grooming the women, the young women. She got convicted on most charges. I didn't see which of the charges she got, but generally speaking, all the big important ones, she got convicted.
Yeah, no, I missed that one.
Yeah. The one just came out a few hours ago. So that was good. So it'll be interesting to see if now that she's been convicted and she's, I understand why she didn't want to plea bargain or anything. But now that she's been convicted, we go to the sentencing phase. She can help herself by rolling, and if she gives up enough people the right information that turns into something, she can probably get herself a much more lenient sentence. So it'll be interesting to see if she does that, or if she hangs herself or whatever else happens.
That's not funny. I say laughing, but yeah.
But yeah, well, another thing is, I don't think I know a lot of people I know think that Epstein didn't kill himself. I think he did, but I think that the situation, the conditions to allow it to happen were set up, and I wouldn't even put it past if he wasn't given a warning like, hey, short eyes, we're gonna make sure everybody knows what you did, and we're gonna put you in the worst unit, and we're gonna make sure that horrible things are gonna happen to you, and we're not gonna help you, you know. And because there's the thing, there's a lot of powerful people who needed him to be not around to talk. So I think that's more likely than actual direct taking him out. I don't believe that those guards were asleep. I think that they were asleep, you know. You know, but
well, especially given what he was charged with and what he had been doing, that's the kind of person does not last long in prison in general.
No,
anyway.
they generally don't. So that's the thing. So it's something where you could very easily goad somebody into doing that with the right inducement. You don't actually have to do the deed yourself.
I remember when Jeffrey Dahmer was killed, and people got so pissed because they're like, "What on earth was happening?" The guards had moved him just briefly out of solitary and into general population just for a brief period of time because they were transferring all this other, and like, oh, there has to be this review of the prison that they could do something that stupid. I was just like, dude, they knew exactly what they were doing, and everybody knew that was going to happen before it happened. I was like, there was no.
Oh yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, so yes, it is conspiratorial in a way, but you don't need a big grand thing. A lot of things are really simple. You know,
it wasn't Bill Clinton calling up the warden and saying, "Hey, I need you to off the guy."
Right. Yeah. Right. You know, and that's the thing. And well, it's just like I did a video long time ago about all these people who believe in like the Illuminati and all these various conspiracy theories. And first off, which is the idea that there's like one organization controlling everything is silly because rich people are competitive. You know, there may be a bunch of organizations, but they're going to be at odds with one another, and they're going to be, and that's always been the case. I mean, if you look at most of the wars, there's big people behind the strings that have something on the other guy, and they're trying to they want to be the one on top. So it's but the thing about it is, like when Hurricane Sandy hit. And like in my area, and we were lucky. We were only without power for like 4 or 5 days. But in the state, I mean, there were people without power for weeks. Some people were out without power for months. But I remember those first few days, everyone was so used to their technology. They're used to the conveniences. And plus the fact it was end of October and it was abnormally cold. So people didn't know what to do. Everyone was kind of wandering around in this bemused state. And I realized, you don't need some big, very complicated conspiracy to control people. If you really wanted to do that, all you got to do is shut the power off and then tell people, hey, you want the power to come back on? You're going to do what we tell you. And most people will acquiesce because they want the power. So, it's you don't need all this other crap. But the other, I'm trying to remember. Oh, the other one, I don't know if you mentioned it, was the shooting of that 14-year-old. It was a stray bullet that killed that 14-year-old in I forget what state it was in, but it was at a mall.
No, I think I missed that one.
So basically, I think it was California, but basically what happened was there was a guy in a mall and he was attacking people. He went into the mall. He asked somebody who worked there a question. He didn't like the answer he got, and then he started. Right, he left and he came back and he had a chain. I had a lock, like a bike lock or a big padlock on a chain, and he was basically like, pummeling, people, thrashing people with it, and causing a lot of problems. So people called the police. Now some of the police calls said, thought he might have had a gun. I think what happened is they heard the sound of the thing like hitting the floor or something like that, and it made a guy. It did sound like a guy. I heard the one 911 call. It kind of did sound like a gunshot, but it wasn't one. Mm-hmm. So the police show up, and of course they're going into their tactical mode. Fair enough, they believe that there's a shooter, and there is somebody causing a lot of problems in any case. But what ended up happening was they find the guy. He had beaten this one woman pretty bad, and she's bleeding all over the place. And so now she's near where the cops are standing. They came around the end cap, and there's a woman on the floor 6 feet away from them. The guy is at the far end of the aisle. He doesn't have a gun. he's not near anybody, so he's not an immediate threat, and it's very clear he doesn't have a gun in his hand.
Mm-hmm.
But the cop with the rifle, who like a few minutes earlier, basically said to his buds, like, let me take point with the rifle. So this guy was like, he thinks he's playing a video game or something. And then he sees the guy and just opens fire. Fires 3 shots, kills the guy. That's bad enough. So, and of course, the media is trying to justify, oh, you had to do something. No, they made no attempt. They made no attempt to. Well, yes, you have to do something. Didn't have to be that.
Well, no, you don't have to do something. If that's going to be it, better to do nothing. It's spraying, fire into just like random locations is not better than nothing. Sometimes
that's right.
Nothing is better than something.
And they made no attempt to freeze, put down your thing. No attempt to disarm him or to capture him whatsoever. That's bad enough. But the worst of it is, of those 3 bullets, there was one that they said it was an overpenetration. So I believe would have gone through his body, hit the floor, and skittered underneath, and it went into. There were dressing rooms on the other side of the wall, and there was a woman and her daughter who were cowering in fear of the guy with the chain, and her daughter got hit in the chest. 14-year-old girl got hit in the chest with a stray bullet. And so now, and what pisses me off is that the media, they're it's a terrible tragedy. No, it's a travesty, because it's not a free fire zone. There was no any kind of safety procedures. There was no any kind of precautions. There were I'm losing the words here. I'm so pissed off, but there are certain ways you're supposed to go into a situation like that,
Rules
and
of
that
engagement.
was none of them. Bo of the Fifth Column did a video about that. And now, again, Bo's ex-military. He's been in situations. I'm pretty sure Bo's been in combat. And he was like, yeah, this didn't need to happen. So for anybody like, well, you don't know. Like, yeah, here's somebody who does know. And he's saying, yeah, this shit didn't need to happen. But of course, so it really pissed me off. The media is like sucking it up. They have all these, they're asking, they're asking police like chiefs, well, why is this justified? And of course, and then the police are of course going to justify it. And then everyone's like, oh yeah, no, that sounds justified. Like, no, it's not. It's fucking not.
Well, and honestly, this gets back to one point that I've made repeatedly. I don't think the police in this country should be armed. They should not be armed. And, I get a lot of pushback on that. We have to arm them right now. And the reason is because we arm our criminals. If we're going to arm our criminals, and if we're going to arm, people who have mental disabilities, we're going to have to arm the police. But if we can find a way to maybe not make guns so easy to get for criminals, then no, our police should not be armed.
It goes beyond that, though. Even if someone's armed, I mean, there are non-lethal methods. In fact, we call tasers non-lethal, but a few people die every year from getting tased.
Yep.
So, it's minimal. We'll call it minimally lethal. But again, even that, like the guy, he wasn't rushing at them. He wasn't doing anything hostile at that moment. They made no effort. That's the thing. It's one thing if they say, hey, stop, and he steps toward them. Okay, fine, fire away. But they didn't even try that. He just literally came around the corner. He saw a guy basically yelled out that the woman on the floor was bloody, and then just bloom. And, probably thinking, hey, I'm a hero. And like, no, you killed a 14-year-old. And unfortunately, you're not going to be held accountable for basically your lack of discipline. That's the word I was looking for, discipline.
Discipline. Okay, yep. What state did you say this was?
California.
All right, he may. I don't know. I'm curious to see what happens. Has anyone suggested whether or not the DA is looking into it or...
But so that I was very upset about that yesterday. I watched the body cam video, and like I said, so it's very clear from the video that the guy with the rifle who shot, he was eager to get to the front of the pack.
Yeah. Well, and there's always going to be people like that in a police. I mean, the police force does draw people like that. It draws a lot of people. Those aren't the only people that it draws, but it definitely does have a draw for that kind of person as well. And that's really a serious problem, and they have to be dealt with harshly because that's what gets other cops killed too. By the way, so if you're a cop, you really don't want that kind of guy around.
Well, that's the thing, and that's the part that upsets me about when cops look the other way when bad cops do their thing, because they're making it bad for all other cops. Every time a bad cop does something bad, they are messing things up for all the good cops that are out there.
Yep.
And basically, it's kind of like, okay, if you just say you committed a crime, and then you decide to, you're running from the law, and you come to my house. And I know, I know you did something wrong. And I say, all right, Nick, you can stay tonight, but you got to go in the morning. I'm an accessory to whatever you did that under the law.
Yeah.
Why that doesn't apply to cops, I don't know.
It's a good question. That's a good one. I hadn't even thought of that. That's really good. That's a good one. All right. Well, was there, what were we going to say?
Well, I was gonna say, and this is the thing. Like, people think, like, I'm not anti-policing. I mean, we need police, but it's just the lack of accountability. And I'm sick and tired of it's a hard job. Yeah, you know what? So is being a soldier in combat, and we don't put up with this from soldiers in actual war. We don't put up with this. So why are we allowing police to get away with things that people in a real, actual shooting war would not be allowed to get away with? And certainly as far as the law, and yes, that the police are able to bend and break the law sometimes in certain circumstances, but that should never be when it comes to accountability. If it's a crime, like I said, if it's a crime for me to aid you in your crime, that shouldn't matter if I'm a cop helping you, because if you're committing a crime as a cop, to me that's worse. Because we've given you authority, we've given you a great deal of authority, we've given you a deadly weapon, and we told you to go up there and uphold our laws. And if you're out there breaking the laws and harming people and violating their civil rights and all this, that's in the same way that I thought of this last night. If somebody kills a cop, we all understand that there's going to be a bit extra effort to get that person, because that person, if they're willing to kill a cop, they're like even more, they wouldn't think twice about killing the rest of us. And again, since the cops represent our attempt at law and order, it's important that we maintain that. And so if anybody threatens that we got to make a special effort to get that. I get that, and I agree with it. But for the same token, the same should happen when a cop does something wrong. It should, that door should swing both ways. And I'm not, and it's not to just punish somebody because they're a cop, but saying, hey, we entrusted you with special authority, and you violated that, in a way that none of us else could.
Yep. Yeah, they're in a position of extra authority and extra responsibility, and if they use that position in any way whatsoever to leverage a crime, it's extra worse. It just is. And if you can't handle that, then don't become a cop. But that's one. Don't
become a cop. And again, the other thing too about it is, on average, in any given year, 50 to 60 cops die from perpetrator actions or related to either the perp doing something to them or in the act of trying to get a perp. The other, and then there's about another 50 to 60 that die from car accidents and heart attacks on the job and other things not related to a combat situation. And that's way safer than being an electrician. And we don't allow electricians to go around, zapping people to death.
All right. Well, excellent. And that fits in very nicely with what we were talking about earlier. So perfect. So anything else you wanted to hit before we head out?
No, that's it. I've been kind of hibernating. So I've just been getting these snippets. Like I said, I saw the thing about the girl, and I just saw the thing about just Jalene Maxwell, a little bit ago before the show. But so other than that, I don't rightly know what's going on. I did see about the Ukraine thing. So I did. So yeah, I guess Putin had said that. And I know you're going to cover this tomorrow, but Putin had said that, well, if the United States or NATO tries to basically help Ukraine, either help Ukraine, let Ukraine in NATO, or any other former Soviet bloc, any additional former Soviet bloc countries join NATO, that's going to be the pretext for invading Ukraine. And of course, NATO's like, yeah, no. So it'll be interesting to see. Like I said, I think, as I said last time, I think Putin's testing us. This is a Sudetenland. And if England and France had said no to the Sudetenland, well, maybe World War II doesn't happen, or it doesn't happen right away, or not in the same way. Because Hitler could have been checked earlier on, and he wasn't. And every time that they kind of acquiesced to him and he took more, that just emboldened him and gave him more time to prepare.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, and I think I think he's looking for. It looks to me like he's looking for any excuse to invade, and I think there are any number of reasons he wants to, and he succeeded with Crimea. I mean, he's now got the Crimea, which I mean, just is really should have been a big no-no, and he's got it, and it's a fait accompli. Is that and
fait accompli.
Fait accompli, and if the Ukraine is allowed to be next, okay, where does it stop? So I have a bit of a more pessimistic attitude than I think the commander does. I do look forward to hearing what he has to say, but my impression so far, just in a brief rundown before we're gonna prep for the show tonight, but he seems to think that no, this is more saber rattling and he won't do it. So I hope he's right.
I hope he's right. Well, like I said, I think if he's challenged, he won't. Yeah. But because things have been happening with the Crimea, and if anything, it's funny because my friends who are more liberal than me, they are very. They don't. One thing they don't like about Obama, they felt he used the military too much. But I think Obama, if he had kind of made it more clear on Crimea that he wasn't willing to let them do that, I don't think it happened. I don't think it would have happened.
Well, I do think I love the guy. I campaigned for him, but I see the argument for he was responsible for creating ISIS, and when he did his red line in the sand with Syria, and I was just like, oh shit, because I knew he was lying when he said that too. He's just like, okay, if they use chemical weapons, we're going in. They used chemical weapons, we didn't go in. And
ISIS started before that, though. I mean, basically, ISIS was because
ISIS, yeah. Oh well, no, right. wait, no. I'm sorry. Wait, no, that was Syria, and then I think ISIS was born out of that because no. Okay, I'll have to.
ISIS is the remnants of the Ba'ath Party, and the Ba'athist military sympathizers. So basically, when the Ba'ath Party was declared illegal. And of course, that was the Ba'athist Party was basically the Sunni party. So once that happened, now you had Sunnis, and basically, because Sunnis are the majority in Iraq, and so now you had a minority Shia government propped up by the U.S. and W. And so, if they had done a better job of incorporating the Baathists instead of making them illegal, ISIS probably wouldn't have started.
Oh, I will have to re-examine that. Thank you. All right. Well, perfect. All right. Well, was there anything else that you wanted to hit? Yeah. We got that. So yeah. Was that it?
No. I guess I hope everybody, whether you celebrate Christmas or not, I hope you had a good holiday time, and I hope you have a good New Year time, whether you're going out or not. I'm not going out. I never do. But actually, we will probably be the Breakfast Club. The thing you've stopped by and visited. I'm probably going to be broadcasting. Paul's out of town. Going to be out of town, but I've got ops, and so like I said, I'm not going anywhere. So no reason not to broadcast.
I will definitely try to stop by. All right. Well,
Cool.
so tomorrow, Commander Lance Mcmillan will be on to discuss the evolving situation in Ukraine and with Russia. And before we go, just one final thing. I have to say this. I will have to say this. I will say this once. Titan Uranus, you are my hero. You know why. If you tell anyone, I will deny it. Didn't happen. And this whole part of the video is going to end up getting mysteriously cut. But well done. At any rate, thank you all for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow. And then we should be resuming our regular schedule for Tuesdays and Wednesdays starting next week. But in the meantime, see you all tomorrow. Joe, glad you made it.